Welcome back guys to another video, and in this one we are doing some F1 predictions for 2022. And as you can probably see on your screen right now, you have this badly designed graphic that I have spent time on in Photoshop, and it shows you the Constructors and the Drivers' Championship 1 to 10 and 1 to 20. And here I'm gonna place drivers and teams, and I will explain why I have placed them as I have. Mostly it's gonna look similar to the common predictions, but I do have some, if I do say so myself, outrageous thoughts on this upcoming year. So before I get started, there's just one thing I need to do. This one and this one and this one. And that is for obvious reasons. If we start with Haas, they have been talking about not spending anything on 2021, and they didn't, so that they can focus on 2022. But I think because they lack so much investment and they don't have the same facilities, the same infrastructure as the other teams ahead of them, even though you will see improvement from Haas and they will be closer to the 9th and 8th team, it's still gonna be 10th place for them. Mazepin, I think, is not on F1 caliber. Even though I think it was his first year in F1, if you compare his first year to other drivers' first years, even in bad cars, he just doesn't cut it. His delta to his teammate is just too high. I think he beat him twice last season, and both of them was DNFs, I think. So yeah, Mazepin 20th, and Schumacher. Now Mick showed some grit in him. He did want to fight, and out of the two, when they got close to the Williams, Mick was actually hard to overtake. And for that reason, I have put him above Mazepin. I mean, arguably you could put him higher, but the grid is too stacked. But I do believe my prediction is that he will score a point this season with Haas. So that is my prediction for the Haas team. And now, if we go back to Constructors, I was only going to do it this way with Haas because they are last in either way. Now, for Constructors then, P9, we will have Aston Martin. And the reason why I have put them so low is because into a technical regulations change, they have fired their team principal, Otmar. They have struggled a lot with low rake this year. And when other teams have proven that they can design floors, into a year where floor design is going to be crucial, and they haven't shown that they can do that, I think they will struggle massively. And I think the teams ahead of them will make just enough progress to get more points. So even though Aston Martin is 9th, they will still have some fights with the Williams, the Alfa Romeos, the Alfa Tauris, but due to the nature of their car, they are going to be at the back of the grid. Moving on to P8 then, we have Alfa Romeo. And the reason why they are up here is because on paper they have a better lineup than they had last year. I think Bottas is better than Kimi Räikkönen at this stage of Kimi's career. Kimi retired over 40 years old and wasn't showing that he still had speed, that grit, and arguably he had a really bad car. If he was still in Ferrari, I think he would have some fight in him. But the Alfa Romeo car, I think it's gonna be the same place. They just have a better lineup right now, and Guan Yuzhou, I think, is gonna end up better than Giovinazzi. And I think the Ferrari engine is gonna be one of the greatest this year. I think they have made some improvement, and if Alfa Romeo choose to take Ferrari's improved battery that they introduced in Russia last season, I think they have enough pace in them and the drivers to outscore Haas and Aston Martin. Moving on to P7, we are going to have Williams. And Williams have, on paper, a worse lineup than they had last year because Russell's move. I think Albon is fast when he doesn't have pressure on him. And for that reason, I have him scoring a lot of points together with Latifi. Not a lot, but enough to outscore the 3 teams behind them. And due to them having Mercedes engines, which I think is gonna be still the fastest, I think they will have really good pace and be hard to overtake. And with more money coming in this year, they're gonna have a better aero package, and they're gonna be able to fight more. So now that we're done with Williams, we can move on to P6, which for this year is yet again going to be AlphaTauri. Now AlphaTauri, Tsunoda and Gasly, I think it's a good lineup, but the reason why I don't have them progress higher is because of Red Bull powertrains. I have questions about Red Bull's relationship with Honda and how they're gonna set that up. Is Honda just gonna rename their F1 team to Red Bull and just leave and say, well, we don't have anything to do with that, we are carbon neutral? Or is Red Bull actually gonna do this all by themselves? I think they're gonna do this all by themselves, and I think they will have some growing pains. They will have mistakes, which is normal every time you do something new. And even though they bring in people from Mercedes to work on their engines and set up everything together with Honda, I think that they will have some issues in the first year. And while Tsunoda will be better, Gasly will be better, I think the Honda engines have some, or the Red Bull powertrains have some question marks around them, which is why you see them still in P6. Moving to P5 then, we are gonna have McLaren. Now how is it that McLaren is dropping down when we have an era change? I think they are still very good, and they will challenge for wins and for podiums. But the grid ahead of them is gonna be stacked, and I think that the other teams have more to give. Now, Ricciardo ended the year very, very good, but his start was horrendous. And I think in a new era, and a new car, and perhaps a harder car to drive, I think he will struggle a bit and then pick it up. And by the end of the season, it will only yield them P5. It will not give them higher positions. Other than that, they will still be the same McLaren, but P4, which in this case is Alpine, will be ahead. Now Alpine is here mainly because of 2 reasons. they are gonna be ahead of McLaren because Alonso is gonna have a field show and really show how to drive in a car that's difficult and probably way different than the current grid have experienced. Now, on this grid is let's see here. 1 Vettel. I don't think Perez drove. I'm talking about the V8 cars here. Alonso did drive V8s. Hamilton did drive V8s. Vettel did drive V8s. So they have experienced more era changes. So that's why I think Alpine is gonna have a really good driver for this type of year, especially the first year of a new era. And on top of that, I think that Alpine has a hidden trick with the regulations, because the massive confidence in 2022 that they've shown suggests that they have found something in the regulations that they can use to get a lot of points. And with that said, let's move to P3 in the Constructors. And for this year, sadly enough, it is going to be Red Bull. For the same reason as AlphaTauri, the question mark around Honda engines and how they choose to do that. I think Perez will struggle a bit. I think Max will struggle a bit. And they are going to try to outdrive a questionable car. Now, I don't think that they overspent anything in 2021 that most people say. So they invested too much, now they can't be good in this year. I just think that the drivers are still going to be good, the car is still going to be good, but the facilities around them, there's a question mark around those. So that's why. Now moving to P2, we have Mercedes. And because everyone knows now, we can put Ferrari as the Constructors champion, but let's talk about Mercedes. Lewis and George, I think, will struggle to cooperate. And I think that it's gonna be a Bottas situation again, but maybe George doesn't want to be Bottas, because you see what happened to the career of Bottas. Once you become a second driver, you don't get out of that. And I think the only team that has shown that they can have 2 first drivers in recent times is Ferrari, with Sainz and Leclerc. And that's why I have them above Mercedes. I think Ferrari and Mercedes are both gonna have a really, really good car. But Ferrari is gonna be able to have better relationship between their drivers. And I think Ferrari with an improved power unit, and finally, if they have a good aero package, they have the drivers, they have the car, they have the facilities, they have everything they need to finally, after so many years, become champions again. Now, let's move to P18 in the Drivers' Championship. And if you take a look at the Constructors again, you see why we have Stroll. Now, I think Stroll is going to struggle this year. And for him, I am predicting 4 DNFs. They can be crashes, they can be failures, it doesn't matter. But I think Stroll is going to struggle massively this year. And that is why I have him in P18. Now P17, we have Guan Yuzhou. And I have put him above Stroll because I think they have a faster car. But due to him being a rookie still and getting to, well, the hang of it in F1, I think he's going to struggle a lot in Q1 especially. And he will not be, a familiar face in the points. I think he will be in the P14 and below when it comes to races, and I think it's going to be fairly obvious that, well, the Alfa Romeo isn't a supercar that a rookie can come in and just perform in. Moving to P16, we have Latifi, and I think he will struggle the same versus Albon as he did with George. And while George is, I think, better than Albon, I think Latifi is just not on the same pay grade as the others. I think he has improved a lot since 2020, his first year, but the delta to his teammate is so high in previous years. And I think Albon, if he had been given more time at Red Bull, could be better for Red Bull than what Perez was last year. And that's just my opinion. I think they really screwed him over with, well, the pressure. And Mercedes really played a big part in that with how they treated him. Let's move to P15. And we have Vettel. Now, how am I placing a 4-time world champion this low? And I think it's gonna be pretty obvious with Aston Martin having issues with management, issues with facilities, issues with design. He's P15 because he will try to overdrive a really bad car. And maybe if this goes really badly, and if nothing opens up in the market, this could be the year where Sebastian Vettel decides to retire. And that is my prediction for Vettel in 2022. I would love it if he can score podiums, fight for wins in a competitive car. But I think that Aston Martin is going to be way behind the curve. And he's not going to have the patience to sit at the back of the grid or in the middle for much longer, as he ended with Ferrari in that way. Now P14, Bottas. Now Bottas will struggle to be driving Ferrari engines for the first time. If I am not mistaken, I think Bottas in F1 in his entire career has only been driving Mercedes engines with the Williams and then in Mercedes. So I think the initial change is going to be hard for him, especially since it's a new engine, it's a new era, a new car, a different team, different facilities, a team that is way lower than Mercedes when it comes to facilities, management, everything around him. So I think he will struggle a lot in Alfa Romeo. And because he will struggle a lot, just ahead of him, Albon will sneak ahead in the championship. I think he will fight for points regularly with the likes of Tsunoda, Ricciardo, the Alfa Tauris, the McLarens, the Alpines. I think that's what is in the future for Albon. Now P12. I don't think this is a surprise, but Tsunoda. Now Tsunoda will show huge improvement from the 2021, but because of the moves of the other teams and how stacked the grid is ahead of him, I think he will struggle a lot in the championship, but he will show good pace and he will still struggle in qualifying and basically fight for P10, P9, P8 sometimes. Now P11. Danny Rick, why is he so low? And The reason I have him in P11 is because I think, for the same reason as Tsunoda, grid is stacked, and he will yet again be outdriven by Lando Norris. I think his performance will stagnate throughout the season, and he will gradually get slower. McLaren will try to, I guess, improve the car rapidly to mitigate this, but I think Danny Rick in this era, I think this is his first era change as well, because he came in 2014, I think, into the V6 hybrid era, and now when they change tires, when they change the car, the characteristics of how they get downforce with the ground effect, I think he's gonna struggle. Which moves us to P10 Ocon. Now, in reality, I can flip Ricciardo and Ocon. It doesn't really matter where I put them, but because I think Alpine is gonna have a better car than McLaren, I'm putting Ocon ahead. And it's gonna be the same. I think Ocon will struggle, and he will not be the same Mercedes driver, star in the making that people think that he is. I think he will get outclassed by Alonso yet again. There's nothing much left to say about Ocon and Ricciardo. It doesn't matter which way you put them, but because Alpine has a better car, I'm putting him P10. P9 then, let's see. Perez. Now, much for the same reason, with Honda engines and Red Bull powertrains and whatnot, new era, new design, new everything, I think he will struggle with this year, because yet again Red Bull will have a car designed for Max. And they're helping Max design a car for this new downforce type, and Red Bull is not gonna have much to give Perez, because he's a bit older than Max, and Max is looking to stay with Red Bull, hopefully for a long time. So when Red Bull focuses on Max, I think Perez will struggle with a new car, and because of the power units, I think they will have some issues with durability as well. So that's why I have Perez in P9. And while we are still on Honda engines, we can go ahead to Gasly in P8. Now Gasly will challenge for podiums, I think, but top 6 is stacked, and the higher up you go in the standings, the more you understand how in order to get a podium you really need to pull something out of the hat this year. Because if you just look at the teams that are fighting for wins and the teams that are fighting for scraps behind them, getting a podium this year as Vettel and Gasly did in Baku is gonna take something special. Yeah, I think that's it. I think throughout the season there will be question marks around Red Bull and AlphaTauri and what Gasly's future is like. And I think if Lewis decides to retire this year, if it doesn't go well for him, Mercedes is gonna look at Gasly and say, we wanna talk. So that is my prediction for Gasly this year. Let's go to P7 then. We have Norris. Now Norris will still be very good, but the top 4 teams are just too fast. I don't think he will score a podium this year, but he will be in 2022 what Gasly was in 2021. Just around the top 6. And he will get a lot of recognition for how much he has improved his consistency throughout this season. And I think the same fate can maybe happen to Norris, as I talked about Gasly. If Lewis decides to retire, I can see Mercedes saying, well, George and Norris together on a lineup would be quite something. So I think they would engage in talks with McLaren for Norris if Lewis decides to retire. So now we are heading into top 6, and now it's really difficult to do this. And it's done with a lot of afterthought and a lot of swapping and seeing what really fits here. But for P6 we have George Russell. Now, Russell will be given a really good car, but he's gonna learn quick why people struggle versus Lewis as teammates. Lewis will be way too good. It will be his first full season in a really good competitive car, and I think he will try to overdrive it, and he will fail a lot, but it will be understanding because they realize that he is the future of that team. And it is his first era change. He came in 2019, and the last era change was 2017 with the wider cars. So he is fairly inexperienced in top cars. And I know people would like to point at the Sakir Grand Prix where he stepped in for Lewis, but I think due to the nature of that track and the nature of having Bottas as a teammate, someone who doesn't really fight you, if Bottas really wanted to fight someone and he had grit in him, I don't think Russell would be anywhere near that win. And in the end, Perez won it either way, so let's move to P5. Now P5 we have Alonso. Now Mr. El Plan here. I think he will be able to score podiums, and he will score, in my opinion, he will score 1 win. And I think it's gonna be in Spain. But due to nature of Alpine car, perhaps as I think they have found something in the regulations that allows them to do something crazy for the first year of this era. I think Alonso will be P5. He will be there. He will have constant fights with Russell, Norris, Gasly, Sainz, Hamilton. He will be a struggle to overtake, and he will be frequent on the podium, I think. Now it gets hot. P4, Carlos Sainz. Now Sainz, I have him driving the best season ever in his career, but the top 3 are way too quick in this year for him. I think he will play a really good role in Ferrari, and he will score his first win this year, but the top 3 are gonna run away with this, similar to last year where the top 2 ran away with it. So now we can move to P3. Hamilton. Now I have Hamilton in P3 for 2 reasons. He will fight with Leclerc, and he will fight with Verstappen, and they will get the better out of him. Now that most people on the grid know that Lewis struggles sometimes with aggressive wheel-to-wheel, and he yields in a fight to think of the long con, I think more people at the top will take the Verstappen approach into dive bombs, into wheel-to-wheel battles, and force Lewis to drive differently. And at this stage in his career, driving differently, even though I think he's fully capable of it, when you don't have one but two, or maybe 3 and 4 in Sainz and Alonso to fight, along with a young teammate that wants your position as a first driver, I think it's going to be too much to handle at the same time. And he is going to drop to P3 in the championship. He will still score, I think, at least 3-4 wins this season. And he's going to be the same Lewis that everyone knows. Now, moving to P2 and P1. When I put P2, everyone knows where P1 is. So, without any further ado, P2 and P1. It's gonna be Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. Let's start with Verstappen. Same reason as Gasly, Perez, Tsunoda will outdrive the car, but the question marks around the car will be too much. And issues with engine, issues with setup, issues with, let's say, everything around the race is gonna play a big part in Verstappen's season. And I think if it weren't for that, he would be a 2-time world champion. And that is the reason why I have Leclerc win this season. They have had this lineup now for 2 years now. Oh, this is going into the second year. They have improved their engine. They have not invested into 2021. And with Binotto's entrance as team principal, except for that 2020 year where they had a weak engine, illegal turnover from 2019, I think Ferrari was really, really good. Now they have some issues that they need to work on, mainly durability. If it wasn't for durability issues, Leclerc wins Silverstone last year. And I think with that fixed and Leclerc having a super season, I think Ferrari will have their first world champion since Kimi Räikkönen and their first Constructors title since 2008. And that is gonna be my predictions for this year. Leclerc wins the title, Ferrari wins the Constructors, and Aston Martin will struggle. Williams are on their way back up the grid. McLaren and Alpine, Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari will have plenty of fights, and it's gonna be a very exciting season to watch. Now if you enjoyed this video, if you would like to discuss why I've chosen something that maybe you don't agree with, feel free to hit the comments below. I will answer every comment. If you agree with something, if you disagree with something, please let me know. Also, this channel is now on 81 subs and I am pushing for 100, and we are currently 19 away. And throughout the year I will do more F1 content, F1 talking points, and so and whatnot. If you would like to see that, do subscribe. It shows up on your feed, and we all benefit. So thank you guys for watching. I will see you the next time. Take care and peace.